Sun Valley, Idaho. A place to train, a time to reflect.
If the younger man beats the older man, then Michael Spinks will have done something that no light heavyweight champion has ever done, defeated a heavyweight champion.
Spinks, the aggressor. A combination fight with Spinks.
You've got to take it to him.
Let it all hang out. Crowd on its feet in anticipation of what could be a new heavyweight champion. Another good right hand by Holmes, but Spinks is right there.
And you, heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Spinks.
Can a man 36 years of age actually get better? That's what Larry Holmes is going to have to do. And another right hand behind it. Now Spinks and there was a right hand by Holmes, and Spinks is in a world of trouble right now.
For the winner, by a split decision, and still.
And I can say to the judges, the referees, the promoters, the kids where the sun don't shine. And since we're on HBO, that's my big flag behind.
But I knew from 12 on, it had to be my fight.
Michael Spinks escaped with a split decision. So after a historic first fight and a controversial second, IBF heavyweight champion Michael Spinks takes the next step to the unified title. Tonight he faces European heavyweight champion Steffen Tangstad as the heavyweight unification series continues on HBO. As the sun sets in the desert, we're live at the Hilton Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, where in the main event, Michael Spinks defends his IBF heavyweight title against Norway's Steffen Tangstad. It's scheduled for 15 rounds. Also, we'll show you some of a fight taped earlier tonight between heavyweight sensation Mike Tyson and former cruiserweight champion Alfonso Ratliff. And so it's Michael Spinks, a boxing enigma, who once more steps into an arena to convince the public and maybe even himself that he is a heavyweight to be reckoned with. It was only 5 months ago that Michael Spinks stepped into this same ring in the Hilton Convention Center and won the controversial decision over Larry Holmes in their celebrated rematch. That's the history. Tonight, it's the next chapter. Hello, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins, along with Sugar Ray Leonard and Larry Merchant. Second title defense for Michael Spinks. And Ray, we mentioned the fact that this man is an enigma. There was a boxing writer who once said, he's so good, it takes an expert to see it. Now, you're an expert. Is he that good?
Well, thanks for being so nice to me, Barry. One thing about it, Michael Spinks has initiated himself as a heavyweight on 2 different occasions and becoming a heavyweight champion by defeating Larry Holmes. I personally feel that Michael Spinks is not a full-fledged heavyweight, but he can deal with any heavyweight champion or contender. But the best is yet to come, because as we get closer to the unification of this division, I think people at home will be able to appreciate and see a lot more of Michael Spinks.
Larry Merchant, when we were in England doing the Tim Witherspoon fight, I asked some of our cohorts from the BBC about Steffen Tangstad if they'd seen him fight, and they, in describing him, borrowed a title of an old Beatles song, and they said, Norwegian Wood. So let me ask you, why Steffen Tangstad?
Well, basically because every American heavyweight champion since Jack Dempsey has tried to fight these foreigners because they have these nice faces just sitting up there like pumpkins waiting to be hit. But sometimes the faces do hit back, most memorably Max Schmeling and Ingemar Johansson. But for the most part, such matches can be traced to the sometimes curious business ethic of prize fighting. You try to fight the least amount of fighter for the most amount of money. The only other thing I can figure out is that American heavyweights are beating up on European heavyweights in some way to pay them back for what those European tennis stars are doing to Americans at the U.S. Open.
This one's a little bit more violent. We'll see what Steffen Tangstad brings to this dance then. Well, it's been a long and a rather ponderous road to the heavyweight championship for the IBF title holder, but Michael Spinks thinks of this not as an individual sport, unusually as a team sport. This is the story of 2 men. One hits the harsh pavement of New York City, dealing with boxing as an industry, walking the streets like any other businessman, readying himself for another tough day at the office. The other migrates to the mountains of Sun Valley, Idaho. He jogs to work every morning at 5:30 a.m. One takes the elevator to the 3rd floor. The other takes and delivers punches. One carries a briefcase full of notes and important documents. The other carries a jump rope. Butch Lewis is the promoter. Michael Spinks is the fighter. Their story began back in 1976. Their first encounter was far from a coincidence. The Summer Olympics in Montreal. The United States boxing team took home a treasure chest full of gold, and a young man from the streets of St. Louis won the 165-pound division and caught the attention of one very interested observer.
I met Butch Lewis July 31st, 1976. After every match, the winner would go to a certain section in the building, or in the forum, where we would be interviewed. And I met Butch right there.
Michael said to me that at the time he didn't think he wanted to turn professional. He didn't want to become a professional fighter.
And he called back and forth throughout 76, on into 77, and then he called me, and I think he told me that he had signed Leon. And then after a month or two passed, I decided to turn pro too.
But Leon first caught the public's eye when after just 7 pro fights, he shocked the world by beating Muhammad Ali. Both Leon and Michael were fighting under the promotional auspices of Top Rank Incorporated and Bob Arum. Butch Lewis was vice president of Top Rank at the time. Leon's fortunes turned sour after his celebrated upset, and as Leon became the butt of bad jokes, Michael let his pro career slip away.
And now all of a sudden, the wolves and the leeches start to come out of the woodwork and surround Leon.
A dream had been shattered, you know, or a big mirror or a big portrait of Leon and myself in the glass had been shattered.
That wasn't the only shattered relationship. Butch Lewis and Bob Arum also parted company.
Whatever would happen between Top Rank and Butch happened to me too. If Butch and Top Rank fell out, Top Rank and Michael Spinks fell out too.
As Butch Lewis Productions, Michael's pro career got off the ground. In July of '81, he won the light heavyweight title from Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, the same Eddie Mustafa Muhammad who 2 years later in Washington, D.C. would haunt not only Michael Spinks, but also Butch Lewis in the aptly named scandal, Weightgate.
I know the deal. I know how they mess with the scales. You know, I know what the deal is, because I've been in boxing too long.
You think the people coming to see you promote a fight, Chuck? You out of your mind. They come to see us fight. Remember that. Let's go for it. I'm tired of you, Butch. Rub off.
He came to the scale 2 3/4 pounds overweight. He refused. I practically begged him to just go run around the block. I mean, it's probably water. Let's make the weight.
I know he was afraid to fight. He was afraid of me, period.
I kind of felt there was a lot of jealousy and envy with Eddie in that fight in D.C.
Eddie Mustafa didn't like the way, I guess, Butch dealt with me. I don't think it was a fight relationship. That's what it really was. He was jealous of our relationship.
By not letting the fight happen, that's better than beating Mike.
The latest chapter in this roller coaster ride of fortune was 2 extraordinary wins over heavyweight champion Larry Holmes. And Spinks has taken Larry Holmes' fight. Left hand a little short, but the second one scored. There's the right hand. Spinks, the aggressor. By combinations by Michael Spinks. To date, the highlight of a career for the fighter and promoter.
I treat boxers like if I were the boxer and I would want to be treated.
We go together like peanut butter and jelly.
If it can happen, more relationships like this can perhaps develop in the sport of boxing.
If I had to choose between anybody on earth to be with,
matchup. Whether the fight stands up to the matchup remains to be seen. But with more comments on tonight's activities, here's Larry Merchant.
Prize fighting, like life, can sometimes be weird and crazy and nutsy, and tonight appears to be one of those times. Of the three heavyweight champions, Michael Spinks has the most credibility with casual fans as opposed to serious fans. He's been around for a decade, he's undefeated, and he became the first light heavyweight champion to beat a heavyweight champion, an aging one-time great, Larry Holmes, twice. And yet, despite all that, here we have Michael Spinks matching himself against an unknown, a suspect, a question mark, when there are a lot better heavyweights out there, which seems to suggest that he too is skeptical about Michael Spinks as a heavyweight. And speaking of credibility, what about Steffen Tangstad in Norway? In Norway, they outlawed professional boxing specifically to get because he wanted to turn professional. So he can't fight there, and he's an outlaw in his own country. Not only that, but he has a 4-month-old son named Tex. But in Norway, they won't legalize that name. They say it's not a really good Norwegian name. It can't be called Tex. But Tex is called Tex. You can trust to that. Beyond that, Norway is very happy to collect the taxes on his earnings from professional fighting. And in spite of all of that, the Norwegian Tourist Board has hired this man to promote tourism in Norway because he is the most popular athlete in Norway. Ours is not to wonder why. Ours is merely to wonder whether Steffen Tangstad can indeed fight on this level for the heavyweight championship of the world.
Camera closely, please. Mark. Thank you. Stand by. And action.
Jag är Steffen Tangstad från Norge, Europamäster. Jag kom hit till Amerika för att vinna över Michael Spinks.
For those of you who don't
try to find places to train. I mean, after they outlawed boxing in Norway, they also outlawed training for professionals. I'm only allowed to do shadow boxing and road work. So now I can do whatever I would like to do concerning boxing.
His philosophy, first get the body into shape, then put on the gloves. A disciplined student, he trains every day of the year. Like his counterpart, Tangstad has his own unusual style of training. He's brought with him from Norway his own exercise guru, advisor, and personal masseur, Egil Sobi, who back at home lectures on how to cope in stressful situations.
Steffen and I, we've been talking about this match for a long time, and we know how to tackle it. That's one of my professions, how to help him to tackle this stress situation. He has a chance because the power of positive thinking, he knows that there's a lot of power in the man, and he knows the way to bring it out when it comes to him.
The criticism of Tangstad has been his inconsistency. He first won the European Championship back in 1984 with a victory over Lucien Rodriguez. Then, 4 months later, he lost the title in his first defense when he was knocked out by Anders Eklund. Tangstad referred to this fight as an accident that will never happen again. And then, this past April, with the European title vacant, he captured it for the second time with a 12-round decision over England's John Wetgard. It's no surprise that European heavyweight champions have not fared well in world title fights. The last to try and fail was the same Lucien Rodriguez who fought Larry Holmes in 1983. In the last 50 years, only one European champion, Ingemar Johansson, holds claim to having won a world championship. In 1959, he shocked the sports world when he knocked out American favorite Floyd Patterson in the third round. there appears to be a parallel between Johansson and Steffen Tangstad.
Yeah, Ingemar Johansson is a close friend of mine. This World Championship fight was just 4 days after I was born in 59, 26th of June 59. I met him in Florida in 1980 when I first came over here to see some of the professional fighting over here. And before that he was my idol. He proved that it was possible to come from Scandinavia to become the heavyweight champion of the world.
The same way Spinks was given no chance against Larry Holmes, Tangstad is given very little hope against Michael Spinks. Yet Tangstad strongly believes that when he steps out of the ring tonight, he'll take along with him the IBF championship belt.
Sure, I believe that. I'm a fighter, and I like to fight, and I want to fight. I want to fight for the title, and that is happening now. And I'm going to give it my best shot. That's all.
So tonight, Steffen Tangstad will try and join his idol, Ingemar Johansson, as only the second European champion in a half-century to win the world's heavyweight title. And here comes Steffen Tangstad, and if I had to describe that look on his face, Ray and Larry, I'd say concern.
Well, it might be called concentration. Unless you really know a fighter, you can't judge how he will behave in a situation like this.
One thing about Steffen Tangstad, even though he's a European champion, and European champions have not had great success in the United States, he has fought 17 of his fights in the United States, so he's not the classic stand-up, straight-up kind of European fighter.
Well, Barry, judging Tangstad's style, one thing about it, he cannot outbox Michael Spinks. I think the best bet for him is try to out-hustle Michael Spinks.
Well, that's essentially what he said when we all sat and talked with him the other day. He said, I got to be on top of him, I got to try to smother him. He seems to take a rather realistic approach to all of this, and Egil Sorby, who you saw a little bit ago in that feature that we did on Steffen Tangstad, has sort of been his spiritual leader, if you will, so he's got an awful lot of things other than the physical going for him. And Egil had told us that if nothing else, he knows his man is mentally prepared for this fight, and sometimes that's half the battle.
That's true, but one thing about it, it's one person in the ring. It's Tangstad. He has to make things materialize.
So it's kind of a cross, at least the mental aspect of it is, between Zen, cybernetics, EST, a little of a power of positive thinking. He's an amalgam, Larry.
And it'll all help him if he can punch.
Sort of always a bottom line in this sport, isn't there?
The main difference between a world-class athlete or a championship athlete and those who aren't usually comes down to a matter of quickness. And what we have to find out yet is whether he has the quickness to cope with someone like Spinks.
You saw his record. He has the one loss, that coming to Anders Eklund. He said it would never happen again. Here's a look at the last European champion,
Ingemar
Johansson.
He looks like some of the heavyweights we've seen in the ring recently. He weighs about 300 pounds.
But he also runs marathons. He's run 2 marathons, Ingemar Johansson. He lives in Florida now. And he is this man's idol. Floyd Patterson, the other half of those matches of the 1950s, the 3 of them with Ingemar Johansson. Floyd looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, he looks like the time he was a middleweight in the 1956 Olympics.
He told me yesterday he weighs about 175 pounds.
Light heavyweight, I'm sorry, Ray. And here is a graphic of the heavyweight series. This, in effect, you can see on the bottom, is a semifinal. The winner will go on to fight the winner of the WBA and the WBC. Mike Tyson, if he won earlier tonight, and I'm being a little coy because we're going to show you highlights of the Tyson fight earlier tonight, would fight Trevor Berbick for the WBC champ, although Berbick is now making noises like he might try to bolt this tournament, in which case it's possible that Tyson would wind up fighting someone else, like Pinklin Thomas.
And we will talk more of that story as you look at some of the celebrities on hand. Sylvester Stallone had a fighter here tonight in a preliminary card. Robert Duvall, of course.
Red Fox behind him, Robert Mitchum, a regular at these fights.
And, of course, Muhammad Ali, who inevitably draws the biggest round of applause. All looking up at this man, Steffen Tangstad, and now the waiting game as Michael Spinks, as is the norm in his heavyweight title fights, making the challenger wait. Let him think about it a little bit. So Tangstad mulls over the next hour or so. He hopes it'll be an hour or so. While the crowd looking to the entrance of Michael Spinks, who has made his way out of his locker room and heads toward the arena floor here at the Hilton Convention Center. Michael Spinks, incidentally, will make do tonight without Mackie Shilstone. Now, we talked about Mackie Shilstone during both the Larry Holmes fights, and what an impact he had on making Michael Spinks a bona fide heavyweight. Well, he's not here tonight.
But one thing, I'm sure they're looking at Michael, there's something different. He's shaved.
There you see his weights in his heavyweight fights. He felt he was a little bit over-muscled and heavy in the second Holmes fight. Felt that he missed some opportunities because he wasn't as quick. Although I think Larry Holmes might have had something to do with that.
Well, Michael Spinks very loose, acknowledging the crowd and smiling at the crowd. Extremely loose. Do you like that attitude, Ray?
Oh, yes, because he's very confident. He knows exactly what he's capable of doing. And I think he's quite pleased with his training.
I remember, though, you telling me that you didn't want to be too loose. I remember against Kevin Howard, you were very loose, and you yourself said that really wasn't the way you wanted to be.
That was a matter of underestimation, I believe, Barry. But with Michael Spinks, I'm sure he's very confident, and he's aware this guy here wants to take his title.
But why shouldn't he underestimate this guy, as you did Kevin Howard?
Well, films play a major role in one's acceptance of a fighter.
And let's remember that this man hasn't lost a fight in 10 years. And no matter how you do it, that's impressive.
Well, we'll be looking at a different Michael Spinks in one respect. He doesn't have a mustache. He did yesterday when we talked to him, and today it's gone.
And there is the record of Michael Spinks in the 10 years since he won the gold medal at the 1976 Olympics. 10 defenses of the light heavyweight championship. That's Eddie Futch, the veteran trainer. Eddie Futch disqualified himself from both fights with Larry Holmes because he had trained both fighters, and now he's back with Spinks.
Well, there is a lot of electricity here tonight, which I must say is even more than I expected it would be. This fight has generated a lot of discussion. Now, whether, again, the fight lives up to the discussion remains to be seen. Michael Spinks still waving to the crowd, smiling at the crowd. Here is a look at the numbers on this fight. 3 years difference. Tangstad, the junior, 13 pounds, a little more than 13 pounds. Tangstad will outweigh Spinks, who came in at 201. And the reach, which I've always found to be rather meaningless, frankly, because it is fingertip to fingertip, so really that doesn't mean all that much.
And there you see our punch stat, which gives you a quantitative look at these fighters. Michael Spinks in the 2 fights with Larry Holmes threw roughly the same amount of punches, around 45, 46 per round. And Steffen Tangstad in the 1 fight that we clocked threw 45, the same amount, landed a few less. Qualitatively is what's important.
Here are the rules of this fight. The IBF rules. The 10-point must system is the scoring. No 3 knockdown rule. There'll be no standing 8 count. Championship fight, of course. Fighter can be saved with the belt only in the last round, and the ring doctor here in Nevada cannot stop the fight. So those are the rules. You can only be saved in the final round. Pretty much the norm. Right now, let's get up to the ring announcer, Chuck Hall, for the pre-fight introduction.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hilton Center, where tonight the dynamic duo, Don King and Butch Lewis, in association with the Las Vegas Hilton Hotel, presents World Championship Boxing. These bouts are sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Freddie Little chairman, with commissioners at ringside, Mr. Sammy Macias, Dwayne Ford, Herb Santos, and Sig Rogich. The executive director is Harold Buck. Representing the IBF at ringside is Mr. Bobby Lee. The officials assigned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for the next bout of the evening. The judges are Charlie Spina of New Jersey, Dalby Shirley of Nevada, and Phil Newman of New Jersey. The timekeeper is Al Bisick. Counting at the knockdowns, Jane Broadfoot. The attending physicians at ringside, Doctors Donald Romeo, Cliff Omansky, and Elias Garnham. The referee for the next bout of the evening is Mr. Richard Steele. This is the main event of the night. 15 rounds of boxing for the IBF World Heavyweight Championship. Introducing, in the blue corner, formerly of Norway, now fighting out of Copenhagen, Denmark, weighing 214 3/4 pounds, with a professional record of 24 wins, 1 defeat, 2 draws, 14 KOs. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the European heavyweight champion, Steffen Tangstad. And in the red corner, fighting out of St. Louis, Missouri, weighing in at 201 pounds. He is undefeated in his professional career, 29 wins, 19 KOs. He is the IBF heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Spinks.
There are, incidentally, 200 Norwegians here for this fight.
Mike, I gave both of you instructions in your dressing room. I want to remind you, obey my commands at all times. In case of a knockdown and you are standing, go to the farther neutral corner. Remain there till I tell you to come out. Is there any question? Shake hands and good luck.
Michael Spinks is wearing a brace on his left knee. That's news to me. I'm not sure what it's about.
Well, of course, he did have a knee injury at one time. That was back in 1979. It did keep him out of action for 11 months. We didn't know anything about it.
Let's go.
He had a conversation, incidentally, just a moment ago with his brother Leon, who came into the corner, into a neutral corner, and talked to him about something.
Well, he's always worn that brace during the Olympics and during these amateur competitions.
This is not a fight, presumably, of who, but how. How will Michael Spinks dispose of his man? Will he be impressive doing it?
Steffen Tangstad coming in without having broken a sweat. Now, it may just be that Michael Spinks kept him standing around. First round.
Watch his foot.
Spinks always appears to be awkward. Took a right-hand counterpunch from Tangstad.
Don't hold him. Let him go, Mike. Let him go.
Well, you see at Tangstad, he gets those hands out there, his jabs are pretty fast. He's not really a devastating puncher. One thing about it, his hands, his combination, he gets together, put them together quite well.
I do want to mention a couple of things that we do have. Harold Letterman as a left hook scores by Tangstad. We have Harold Letterman, who's our unofficial judge here at HBO. He'll be scoring the fight. We'll be talking to him. Also, they'll be speaking Norwegian in Steffen Tangstad's corner, and we have Bernt William Asbjornsen, who is with us to translate. So we'll be able to give you up-to-the-minute Norwegian translation.
Michael Spinks gives you a target, then all of a sudden he vanishes because he's quite elusive up top. Very good upper body movement. Good stiff left jab of Michael Spinks. Spinks has not yet figured out the style of Tangstad. I think what's going to do it is a jab. As Michael Spinks continues to throw his jab, you see opening in Tangstad.
combination by Tangstad.
You know, it's the left jab, and Michael Spinks is starting to snap the head of Tangstad.
Tangstad, a right hand to the top of the head. Tangstad at least making good on his promise to force the action. Well, we want to remind you that coming up, Mike Tyson versus Alfonso Ratliff. Tyson, of course, perhaps the most talked about heavyweight these days. They're talking about him, even though he's not the champion, even more than the multi-champions. That fight taped earlier, and we will have it for you coming up a little bit later in this program.
He's trying to have him with right hand. Okay. Okay.
Tangstad certainly doesn't seem awed by the situation. He tried to impose himself on Spinks like a big man on a little man in that round. Spinks got some jabs through, but Tangstad landed some of the heavier punches.
Just to elaborate a little bit more on something we touched on earlier about Mackie Shilstone not being with Michael Spinks. Michael said he felt just a little bit slow in the second fight with Larry Holmes. And he felt that perhaps some of the training that he was doing away from the ring might have had an effect on that.
Well, but I always felt that Michael is trying to convince everybody that he's a heavyweight by trying to put on additional pounds. He doesn't need that. I think it has a tendency to take away his speed and his mobility.
Richard Steele asking time out for just a moment. A big glob of Vaseline was on the shoulder of Tangstad, nothing more than that.
Because Michael can beat a lot of these guys with just speed alone. In and out combination, a lot of footwork. His type of footwork.
That left hand caught on the gloves by Spinks. Spinks' jab now starting to find its mark, as you indicated, Ray.
Well, he needs to keep Tangstad off balance. Michael is complaining about something, probably the head of Tangstad. So Michael needs to just keep Tangstad off balance.
Good combination there, and that slowed Tangstad.
You see what's happening here, Barry. Michael's actually frustrating Tangstad. Tangstad will punch and rush his man in desperation. That's when Michael should be able to catch him running in.
And Spinks getting the better of that exchange. A lot of supporters for Tangstad in the crowd here tonight.
Keep him up.
As in my imagination, Ray, Tangstad seems to have a propensity to drop that right hand just a little bit every now and then.
Well, what happens, it's all through not being able to figure the style of Michael Spinks. Spinks' jab has been going through the defense of Tangstad, and I think it's a matter of frustration. It can't be fatigued because Tangstad is in shape.
Keep him up.
And Spinks now getting off quicker than Tangstad.
Watch for the left hook of Michael Spinks.
Punch it out. Watch your head.
Spinks very effective with the left hand.
You know, she's darting in and out. Michael Spinks giving him that movement.
That right hand was a little bit short.
Michael Spinks, who clearly felt that he was much quicker than Tangstad, and so became more aggressive than we usually see him this early in a fight.
Back him up. You only affect him when he's coming to you. You got to back him up. Rough you around. You got your hook. You're double and triple hook from the inside. He's strong inside. I know he's strong inside. He's on the inside doing nothing, though.
You're out of there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Ready?
So punch him. Relax and let the punches go. They hurt him. He's trying to put you away. But you got to put the whole thing on him right now.
You heard what they're saying in their corners. In Spinks' corner, Eddie Futch is saying you must back up this man because he's only effective coming forward. In Tangstad's corner, they're saying this guy's trying to take you out. You got to go and put it to him. Spinks definitely fighting like the 7-1 favorite he is.
Spinks apparently feels that he is in control of the fight after a little bit of a slow first round for him. And incidentally, they are speaking English in Tangstad's corner, not Norwegian. Good right hand by Michael Spinks there.
It's quite frustrating.
That was the best punch of the fight right there.
It's frustrating because Michael can throw punches from all directions. Michael does not fight by the book. That's what makes it so difficult. Good jab by Tangstad there. Michael also, he was telling Eddie Futch that this man is strong, especially inside.
Left hand by Tangstad. Now Spinks backed up. I don't think he was hurt.
Tangstad has a lot of heart.
There was a right hand, and Tangstad is down.
I was just saying a lot of heart, but then he connected with the right hand, Michael Spinks.
Still a minute and 3 seconds remaining.
You okay?
Watch Michael go to work.
Good right hand again by Spinks.
Michael's catching Tangstad as Tangstad is coming in.
And a left hand. And another right hand. Tangstad just trying to get through it inside of 30 seconds. Another hard right hand by Michael Spinks. And Tangstad still has 15 seconds to go.
So far, this has been a much more action-filled fight than almost anyone anticipated.
Throw it on there. Relax. Your punches are a little bit slow.
How do you feel? You okay? Pay attention.
Relax.
Okay. Goggle now. Come on. Give me the bucket. Goggle.
There you see, here you see what's happening here. And as I noticed earlier, he's just much quicker with the left hand in particular. And finally, the opening came with the right hand. And as Tangstad was trying to move away from the left, the right hand came right over the top. A three-punch combination, Ray, and that's the way it's written in the textbooks, I imagine.
Put the punches together, not one punch.
Spinks says he wasn't coming out to look impressive. He was coming out to be sharp. So far, he's been both.
Not wasting any punches, making just about every punch count, throwing them from just about every direction. Another good right hand that Tangstad walked right into. And he's down. Tangstad right at the moment is out on his feet.
You okay?
And Richard Steele lets it go on. Tangstad is just looking for a place to fall down. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
What about now? Huh?
Richard Steele asked Steffen Tangstad how he felt, and Tangstad said, "That's enough." Well, Steffen Tangstad, Ray, was not an upright European champion. He came to fight. He did fight. He just was in there against the Tiger tonight.
Well, like I said, Mike is not a full-fledged heavyweight, but he can hold his own against anyone. Michael Spinks, he utilized the left jab and comes with that dynamite right hand. I tell you one thing about Michael Spinks' left hook. It's very, very short, very potent. There he was able to put Tangstad to the canvas. At this point here, Tangstad was out of it.
And here's a look at the second knockdown now. A right hand and Tangstad behind a left. He goes down.
Well, Michael could follow up with the left hook. In fact, it's a very good habit to have. Once we have another shot as Michael Spinks throws the right hand and comes back with a beautiful, picture-perfect left hook.
And we'll take one final look at that second knockdown. It was a great right hand. He let Tangstad throw a left and came right over the top. So yet another European champion comes and goes, leaving Ingmar Johansson, who's here tonight as the only European champion to ever take the title back. Here is our punch stat totals. Tangstad threw more punches, as you can see, but Michael Spinks, very effective, scoring on 58% of his punches. He had a very effective left jab. He didn't waste any punches. He finished very well. By and large, an impressive performance.
Well, Michael Spinks, without worrying about how much weight he put on, was more mobile. He was quick. He was fast. He could get in and get out and be very effective.
Let's get the official decision now from Chuck Hall. Chuck?
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Richard Steele stops the bout at 58 seconds of the fourth round. The winner by a TKO, and still the IBF heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Spinks.
You know, Ray, you've made the statement on numerous occasions. It's very difficult to fight an awkward fighter, and Michael Spinks, for all intents, is an awkward fighter. Tonight he was particularly effective, I thought.
Well, his type of movement frustrated Tangstad. Tangstad was never really able into the fight. He hit Michael a couple body shots, but didn't do too much damage. Michael used his left jab and countered with a beautiful right hand.
Everybody's been saying he's got to prove himself, the ability to knock out a heavyweight. He did that tonight.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Michael. He's trying to convince everybody that he's a heavyweight. He's not a full-fledged heavyweight, like I keep stating, but he's effective and he wins. That's all that counts, though.
Tangstad did exactly what he said he was going to do. He told us he had to be on top of Michael Spinks. He had an effective first round, and it looked like Spinks was just kind of sitting back trying to figure out his style. Once he did, it was over.
Well, the mistake Tangstad made, he laid back, and then all of a sudden, Michael Spinks was able to push him back, and that was what Eddie Fuch was telling Mike to do, to push him back. Michael did that, and Tangstad cooperated.
You could almost see at the beginning of the second round, Spinks say to himself, I got it now. My man can't hurt me.
Well, that's a matter of confidence, because once you're able to get your left jab in, your body shots, and every punch you want to throw, that's when you're able to actually set your man up for a knockout.
So Michael Spinks gets by the European heavyweight champion, came into 214, so now he's knocked out a heavyweight. Larry Merchant is with the winner right now. Larry?
All right, Michael, you are uncommonly aggressive, and certainly for the first time like that in a big heavyweight fight. Your assessment?
Well, first I can say all the praise, honor, and glory goes to my Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ. I say hi to Mackie and Sandy in New Orleans. But I was answering your question now. I was aggressive in this fight because what I was told, I watched the film only once, but I didn't get much out of it. But they say he couldn't fight backing up, and I felt good. He was strong inside. He knocked my head side to side a few times. That really made me a little leery of staying on the inside. But I just felt that I could control the match with his European style. He's still a European no matter what. I thought I could get his inside and touch him in the body.
You're saying you felt that he was strong in the first round or two.
Oh, he was strong in the entire fight, but he just didn't. I mean, I made myself very unable for him to land the effective punches.
It seemed that Eddie Futch was saying, said to you between rounds, you can't fight backing up, you must be aggressive. Did that kind of tactic surprise you against a heavyweight?
No, not at all, because I've been doing a great job in the gym, and I box heavyweight, so, with my type of defense, I feel good of going forward. I can do a little bit of everything in the ring, and whatever I have to do against anybody, that's what I do. And I felt that it was important to touch him with my jab. If I found him with my jab, I can find him with everything else.
Does this make you feel now that you can handle bigger men?
Well, every man is a different man. And as each fight progresses, I'll take them as I feel. I'll take every fight as I feel. If it's important for me to go forward, I'll form a defense to help me get inside to go forward and do what I have to do against every man. I'm confident I can fight. I learned how to fight a long time ago, and it's just making the necessary adjustments. And I'm very adjustable, and I make adjustments like adjusting everything, every material thing in the world.
Let's try to adjust here for a moment to a picture of the knockdown, the knockdown that finally put him away. You describe it.
Well, I was waiting for him. I hit him with a good right hand because he had his left hand kind of low, and I came right back with left hook. I saw in the film how he swung. He shoots from the hips. Most of the guys that I been watching, the majority of boxers shoot from the hips. Probably except me. Even at times I shoot from the hip sometimes, but I saw that he was shooting from the hip after a couple punches, and I thought it was best to follow up with the left hook after the right hand, and thought he'd be open for it, which he was.
Are you prepared now to wait for the finals of the heavyweight series and to meet whoever is there?
Of course, I'm in the business to do it, and this is how I make my living, so look forward to me doing that. And I'd like to say they just made me honorary chairman of Just Say No to Drugs, and I hope that we can help knock out the drug epidemic in our country just the way I knocked out Tangstad.
Thank you very much, Michael Spinks, and now back to ringside.
Okay, thanks very much, Larry Merchant. The other thing, too, that I feel should be pointed out here is the fact that his corner was very organized. Eddie Futch was back in there, and the one sage piece of advice that we heard Eddie Futch say was you got to back him up. And Michael Spinks just substantiated that he didn't fight very well backing up.
Well, Eddie Futch is a veteran trainer, and he knows exactly how to work another opponent. And in fact, he saw a weakness in Tangstad, the fact that Tangstad cannot fight backing up. And Michael Spinks went in there, became more aggressive, worked inside, got his right hand in, and he followed with a clean left hook.
So Michael Spinks is a knockout winner in the 4th round over Steffen Tangstad, the European champion, and he retains his IBF heavyweight title. A little bit earlier,